This podcast is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information contained in or provided from or through this podcast is not intended to be and does not constitute as financial advice, investment advice, trading advice, or any other form of advice. The information in this podcast is general in nature and is not specific to you, the users, or anyone else. You should not make any decisions, be it financial, investment, trading, or otherwise, based on any of the information presented in this podcast without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or financial advisory. You understand that you are using any and all information shared in this podcast at your own risk. You are solely liable for any losses that you may incur from investing, and in no event shall we be liable for any losses which may be incurred while investing.
Hey, and everyone, welcome back to ABCC's podcast. I'm Marcus again, and we have Alan with us on this podcast again today.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so today we are going to talk specifically about Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has been, of course, one of the biggest topics in the past decade, I would say. And today we're going to dive a little bit deeper on what Bitcoin is exactly. So before I can actually start on talking about what Bitcoin is, probably a little bit of history on Bitcoin. It is actually the first cryptocurrency and blockchain technology that was introduced to the world. And it's founded by this person or this figure called Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009. Up until today, we still do not know who he is. Right, Alan?
No, yeah, we don't know who he is, and he's been in the radar for a long time, and a lot of guesses across the years, right?
There was so much speculations that he might be someone like Elon Musk or things like this, but of course, all those are just wild guesses. And Bitcoin is actually a virtual currency with no physical form. That means, unlike the fiat currencies like your US dollars, like your Singapore dollars, you can actually feel and hold it in your hands. But Bitcoin does not have a physical form. All you can see are what you can see in the non-tangible form. So Bitcoin also does not use any central banking system, nor is it regulated via any government or regulated fully, if I can say. So that is one of the biggest aspect, I think, of Bitcoin, and that's why a lot of people it drew a lot of people's eyes, particularly because of this decentralization part of Bitcoin. Also, you can send and receive Bitcoin without any official documentation, things like this. And that is also one part whereby Bitcoin is very much favored for very fast transactions, I would say, which all these details will be touched on a little bit more by Alan in the next part.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. So overall, I think four main characteristics. One is decentralization. Second is for its transparency. Third is fast. And finally, also the most important part of Bitcoin is the transaction is immutable. I think we can start off with talking about how decentralization of Bitcoin is and why is that important.
Yep. I think decentralization, the most important part is there isn't a particular authority of control. It means there isn't one party that actually can manipulate or monopolize the entire movement of the network. I think as time goes on, a lot of people do realize that regulation and centralization has been a norm in the markets for the longest time, and that actually did not produce like a free market kind of thing. And that's why decentralization is that important to Bitcoin, and that's why Bitcoin is also that much more favored in recent times because of this decentralization aspect. It also ensures that there are no vulnerabilities or corruptions, etc., that are happening within the network, because nobody can actually control it. That's why.
Yeah, correct. So decentralization means that nobody can control it. That's why it comes to a very important part. That's why it has to be transparent. Because like if no one can control it, and how can we prove that all transaction is there, everyone can see it, is making the Bitcoin as transparent as possible. So everything on Bitcoin is transparent to the user as it is a public blockchain. It allows it uses like a ledger system that allows users to see or maintain all the senders and receive the address of each of the users, and also the amount they send at the time. And basically all the information on the transaction is shown. So there's no ever like a missing Bitcoin ever on the blockchain network. So everything is traceable from the born of the Bitcoin to the final received address of the Bitcoin.
Yep. On top of that, it's also like the speed of how Bitcoin can be transferred. I think Alan and I have previously talked about this in at length before, and in terms of like traditional banking wise, we do understand that if you want to send a transaction, it usually takes some time. Of course, I mean in terms of locally wise, if you want to send a transaction, yes, it might be quite fast. But if you want to send to like overseas and things like this, usually it'll take a couple of days, maybe even up to seven days, and things like that. In terms of Bitcoin transfers, is a lot faster than that. Transactions can be settled within minutes when you first execute it. But of course, these transactions they will vary as well based on how much traffic is on the platform and how much traffic is on the network. Of course, the higher traffic, the longer the time it will take, but it will still be faster than it will still be faster than 1 day usually. So that is the beauty of why Bitcoin, is one of the better ways of transferring a store of value as well.
Yeah, correct. So as what Marcus say, is Bitcoin is very fast compared to a lot of banking system. And finally, it's immutable. So as previously mentioned, so Bitcoin is decentralized, it's transparent, and it's fast. And the final thing is it's immutable, meaning anything that already recorded or executed cannot be reserved, and no one can change or delete any agreed transaction history.
That is actually one good part and also one scary part, right? Because let's say, for example, if you already executed it and you're like, oh gosh, I probably missed out like one part or one letter in the address. Yeah, you can never reverse that. That's also the scary part. But it makes it totally kind of immune to any kind of leakages, I would say, because of this immutable portion. And this is the one, if I can say, one of the most highly valued function of Bitcoin. Yep. So in terms of how Bitcoin works, I think when Bitcoin was initially introduced to everyone, nobody actually knew what the blockchain technology was for Bitcoin. And how it actually functions is that there's actually a shared public ledger system that documents every single transaction happening within the Bitcoin network, and that system itself, anyone can actually enter it and see it, and anyone can trace a specific transaction if they have the details of the transaction, for example, the transaction ID. So all these transactions, but all these transactions within for Bitcoin are just merely transfers of value within the blockchain wallets. And I would say that as time goes on for the blockchain technology, when it's adopted more and more, you can see that more and more different coins have popped up after Bitcoin to adopt this blockchain technology. And that's why I think that in terms of how Bitcoin actually works to change the whole environment of the cryptocurrency, the blockchain technology, as well as the finance world, actually Bitcoin spreads out its spreads out its roots using blockchain technology, and a lot of people adopted it after that. I think in terms of what Bitcoin does for the advantages wise, Alan, maybe you can talk a little bit on that.
With that, we have come to an end of part 1. Next week, we'll be touching on the advantages of using Bitcoin and also how blockchain technology changes the market. So see you guys next week. Goodbye.